Woohoo! Well, I know that that is something that Cordelia would certainly appreciate, is that all four of us were dancing in that energy and that verve of the power. So, oh my. All right. So I have obviously the distinct honor and joy of introducing the awesome sauce that is Marie Martin. She came into our lives like a boom. I was supposed to be there. And we are so excited to have her here talking about one of her areas of truly of expertise, but also truly of heart around dismantling the system. So with that, I give you the stage and know you will take it away, my love.
Thank you so much. And as always, OMG. I am like, it is like, boom, another level, right?
Yeah.
Cordelia, I just want to thank you so much because you said the hard part. And I was like, oh, now I can skip saying the hard parts. Now, I'm just going to reiterate. But you guys are amazing. Seriously.
It's all of us. It's all of us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for everything. This is just such a powerful day right here. And I'm excited to really kind of get into the reflection part of this, right?
Yeah.
And really get into how do we take that action? Cordelia said, it's just not enough to write it down. How do we intentionally make action towards the world that we want to see, right?
Yes.
That's it.
Yes.
And so I'm going to take you through some reflection. But before we do this, I'm glad I put this in for everything. It's time to just kind of take a little moment of time for ourselves right quick and just kind of digest, just take a moment to breathe, okay? And take a breath of fresh air and just breathe, everybody. Because this work is, breathe in. Of course, yesterday I said, breathe in the positivity and breathe out the negative, right? Because this is just all work, and it's work of love, okay? And part of us being human is to be able to connect as humans and to connect to our humanity, right? And so it is time to just relax and just take a breather. And I'll give you that moment in that space to pause. And just take one more deep breath in and breathe out as slow as you can. Yeah, we definitely need this, all of us, because this is heavy work, it's love work, but this is purpose, and it takes intentionality. But also, just like Cordelia pointed out, you do have to do some research. You do have to do some studying and learning. So when you are, so that you can see, and then from there you can actually act, right? And so the first thing that we need to always start with is ourselves. But here's the agenda. We're going to reflect on our positionality. We're going to start with ourselves and really focusing on that positionality. We're also going to identify white supremacy culture, because this is what we're dealing with in the workplace. Just like Cordelia was talking about, what is capitalism? What are our corporations built upon? It's built upon a supremacist society and societal issues, and that means that there are certain people who are going to be ahead and some certain people who are going to be at the highest and then the lowest. And it's all based off of, merit, what do you call it? Where it's like, I deserve it because I work so hard. And not saying that you don't work hard. Every single person does work hard, but there are certain systems in place that elevate others and elevate some over others. And it's this whole othering effect when we talk about it. And I think Cordelia did a great job of saying, just because there's certain, letters behind my name or this and that, we really have to be mindful of and seeing what's happening. And you can't act unless you can actually see it first, right? Lastly, intentional reflection. And so I'll take you through Carol Rodgers' reflection process. So as you're writing in that journal, you're writing your action and being intentional about what actions you're going to take. And it is something that is a lifelong process. I am in another cycle right now. And each of my clients, I'm in different cycles, right? Because this is where the work is done. It starts with us and our reflection process, and then our intentional actions towards, right? Gotta be free to be me. Yes. Anyways, before we start, I want to send you my Padlet because this is where we're going to begin. And I just kind of want to give you a brief show. I chose Padlet, and there it is right there. I chose Padlet just because I wanted to make sure that we're anonymous. I don't need your names. We're not going to use the chat. I don't need your names. Although you can still use the chat to be like, woohoo, what's up, people? And to raise your hand and etc. But I really wanted us to reflect on this discussion right here, and I'll ask some questions. We're going to first reflect on our roles. And when you add a comment, you just push the plus button, and the plus button will be right under the sections we're working on. And then you can type in whatever you want to type in, mother, sister, okay? And you can start writing your roles first, but what I want to do, and then you just push publish when you're ready to publish and it'll show up automatically. Before, I just want to make sure everyone has that, everyone's okay, cool. Alrighty, so what we're going to do now is I need to talk to you about who I am and my roles. And so who am I? I'm Marie Martin. Hello, how are you doing? I'm a wife first. I'm a mother to a beautiful, just turned 7-year-old daughter. I'm a caretaker for 2 elderly parents. I'm an educator, and I'm also a change agent. And that change agent means that I am going to be disrupting your processes. I am going to make sure that students that are from marginalized communities, specifically Black, Brown, and now even rural, because my last assignment was in rural area, have what they need to move towards the 4th Industrial Revolution. That is my moral purpose. What I would like for you to do is I would like for you in our Padlet, and I'm going to put it in one more time just in case you weren't here. I want you to go ahead and I want you to discuss your roles, reflect on your roles. Who are you? As you can see right here, I put mine as an example. I'm a wife, I'm a mother, a caretaker, an educator, and an equity warrior. And if someone can just give me a thumbs up to make sure that we can all see this, I want to make sure that we can. Oh, cool. Yay. Awesome. And again, right here under number 1, you just push plus, and then you can start typing. And then push publish, and we should all be able to see. I think so. Uh-oh, you don't see a plus under number 1? Uh-oh, that's no good. I wonder if you can, well, that's gonna go badly. Alrighty, so there's no plus sign under the number 1 when you see it? You don't see it either. Oh no. Okay, hold on. Oh, I see. Let's change. Public. And can edit. How did I do? Yay! Okay, tell me if you can see the plus sign now. Yay, all right. It's a beautiful thing. And I'm starting to see people show up too. That's awesome. Great. I see mother, wife, seeker, collaborator, protector, creator, wanderer, son, learner, teacher, friend, collaborator. Yes. Wife, mom, sister, educator, learner. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I thank you for sharing. It's not something you have to do. I'm inviting you to share. So thank you so much for sharing. I'm going to talk now on positionality. Community leader, yes. Mom, private, adventure seeker, yes. Volunteer, connector, auntie, yes. These are the people, this is who you are, right? This is your core. And I thank you. I thank you for that. I thank you for sharing that. The next thing we need to look at and focus on is our positionality. And when we see our positionality, there are certain things about our positionality. This is actually a positionality wheel. You will see this a lot. Here's the line of domination. Anything over this line of domination is your privilege. Anything under the line of domination is where you're oppressed. And that's where you can start looking at your intersectionalities, right? And intersectionalities means how many times over are you oppressed? So if we were to take a look at me and map myself, I am heterosexual. I am able-bodied. I'm credential, which means I can get elitist. Upper middle class or middle class. I come from a middle class background, and I have to, really take a look at that too. And even in relation to other portions of my family, right? Anglophones, I speak English. And I'm Gentile. Non-Jewish, but Gentile, right? That's that Christian factor in us, right? And then here are ways that I could possibly be dominated. I'm a female. I'm a person of color. Non-European origin. And so when we take a look at this visual, thank you so much. I love this visual because when you really, the first thing in our program that we did was we talked a lot about our positionalities. And even when I take a look at right here, like colorism, where it says light, pale, and dark, I'm still in this spectrum somewhere of color, right? I'm not necessarily dark. I'm not necessarily light-skinned. I'm somewhere in the middle, right? And so it's just something that we have to take a look at. I'm also, another thing, fertile. I'm fertile. I have a child, right? And there's a lot of pain that goes into being non-fertile. But not only that, this really takes, you really have to take a look. And if you want to start filling out number 2 on our Padlet, feel free to start filling out number 2 there. to kind of analyze your privilege versus your oppression, let's say. As you can see, I have a lot of privilege. I do have oppression. But in all of this, okay, I can still cause harm to others, right? I can cause harm to a woman who is non-fertile, let's say, and say, why don't you have any kids? Why don't you have any kids? You should have kids. The kids are well, I'm trying to, right? And that could be harmful to somebody. There are other ways that I can harm individuals. And so when you're looking at your privilege, you're also taking a look at how are ways that I could possibly harm someone through my language, through my words. Again, thank you, Cordelia, for talking about this. And so I'm just going to go over to our Padlet again and just take a look at some of the work that we have been working on here. Able-bodied, heterosexual, cisgendered, middle class, yep. English as a second language, female, European heritage. Thank you so much for sharing. I appreciate that. And anybody else who wants to add as they're reflecting on their positionality. And what I did was I added it right here for you. Isn't that awesome? So all you got to do is just click on the picture if you need to be reminded of all of the different ways that we, one, either oppress, or two, that we are oppressed, right? There's a couple of things we can do here. And then you can intentionally be aware of these things as you go into the workplace too, right? Thank you so much for sharing. I really do appreciate it. Female, feminine, heterosexual, credentialed, Anglophone, fertile, people of color, white, able-bodied, European heritage, middle class, fertile. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm so humbled by you sharing, and I thank you. Of course, we have to take a look at this as we're taking a look at the humanization, right? Because what we have is every time you see someone shot on the news, or someone who is shot down by police or police activity or whatever, it's all about the demonization of somebody and the justification of people, of why they were shot or harmed or whatever, right? And it's not really about that. These people were each human beings, one, but they were also roles. They had roles to play. They were fathers, they were mothers, sisters, brothers. They were people, human, right? And so we have to really take a look at not trying to justify what happens, but really to take a look at our actions and how we are civilly handling some people and unequally handling other people, right? And a lot of this is due to, of course, boom, racism. But how is that playing out? And I'm not going to go through all of this because I feel like Cordelia did such a wonderful thing here, but I do want to point out some things of that Imperium Romanum, right? And this Imperium Romanum is that whole like exploitation and the explanation of, and it came from the Greek Roman where they were, coming through and taking over other tribes and other nations. And so they started othering them by saying that they were barbarian when the people taking over were actually civilized. And that's where our civilized comes from, civilization and all of those types of words, virtue over barbarianism, which eventually turned into good, bad. And then when Christianity came in, it turned into good versus evil, and hell versus heaven, etc. And so, this gives people that reason or justification to feel okay with exploiting others, right? And that exploitation of people is this, ideology of people deserved that. They shouldn't have been doing XYZ, and therefore that's why that happened to them, right? And in order to justify the exploitation. And then how does this play out? It plays out through systemic enclosures of communities of color. Another term that you need to get used to is that colorblind racism, that everybody is equal. And Cordelia, again, thank you so much for getting into it because we never have to, these are things that actually have names, and you can name these ideas. And that colorblind racism is the thing of, oh, well, everybody is equal. And then the justification of why things happen to them because they had a choice, because everybody is equal now. So, Martin Luther King marched, boom, we're good, right? And it's not about that. There's a certain thing of anti-Blackness that jumped over the seas, and it's pretty much in any Western civilization that you go to, Westernized, and even taking a look at the beneficiaries of slavery or people who have oppressed, right? Segregation, mass incarceration. All of these is like to combine, or it's in order to confine and oppress others, redlining everything to how they redline, because that was actually against the Constitution. So, when certain people come in and they say, well, we can't have single housing with multi-housing, that's another way of saying we're trying to redline you. And so you have to take a look at this language that's being used. Certain things that I added here is, what is white supremacy culture? Because that's what we're dealing with in the workplace. We're dealing with a white supremacy culture. And thank you again, Cordelia. I'm telling you, she was just like, bing, bing, bing. That's why I don't have to spend a lot of time on this. It is a sense of perfectionism, urgency, defensiveness, okay? Quantity over quality, worship of the written word. There's only one right way to do things: paternalism, either or thinking, power hoarding, fear of open conflict, individualism. These are things that have to be named, right? I'm the only one who does all of this work. I'm working so hard. Progress is bigger and more objectivity and right to comfort. And go to Okun. He now has a full website. I will add that to my resources page a little bit later, because I just found a website, and he has redone and restructured a lot of stuff on this. But when you have to take a look at how whiteness has morphed within this country to be more inclusive of who they want to be included, right? And it still keeps away and separates others, quote unquote others, right? And when we take a look at whiteness as a social construct and not an actual race, that's what we're looking at. And that is, it's always within our structures, every single structure that you look at. And so I love these three quotes right here: how whiteness rests upon the foundational premise that white is the norm, and that is the standard for being a human, and people of color are a deviation from that norm. And so when you realize where that comes from, it's like, wait a minute, I am okay. Wait, I'm free to be me. I'm free to wear my hair the way I want to wear my hair. I am free to speak my mind, and I'm unapologetically speaking my mind here. Okay. And no one is asking you to apologize for your ancestors. We're cool. Okay. What we're asking is for us to start dismantling these systems and processes that we see. And it can be big and it can be small, right? But the first thing we have to do is we have to take a look, and we got to take a look and see it. And that's what we're going to talk a lot about today too. And you're either choosing the work to be anti-bias and anti-racist and confronting this, especially with me, I'm in the education area, or we're choosing to continue it by being complicit. And I think that's where we have to take a look. What are we doing for what are we doing to move forward and not be complicit in the actions. Now, some of you, and me too, this year, I have realized that I'm the only one in the room, right? And the thing is, I'm the only one who can see it. And that's been kind of my issue as I've transferred from education over into the corporate world and working with corporate clients, right? And a lot of times, I'm not saying I get in trouble or don't get in trouble. I'm unapologetic about where I'm going. I know what I need to do and who I'm impacting. And because and it's, at first I'm like, whoa, I'm in the room with or whoa, I'm in the room with, look at this, I'm in the room with president of this, and then once you get used to that, it's like, yeah, I'm in the room, I'm the only one who sees it, and now I have to speak out. and that has been, kind of a wild ride for me this past year, because I see it. In my cohort, we call it dropping the mic. Got to drop that mic on you and let it go and see what happens. Now, luckily, it has been amazing when I drop the mic. But the thing is, it could have gone the other way. And it's a scary feeling, because, your job is on the line, your prosperity is on the line, but you do have to be intentional. I think that's where the intentionality comes into this. So how do I speak up without, I don't mind sounding crazy and radical, but my husband, he's kind of like, closet drop the micer kind of. And so it's like, how do I sound more rational than radical? And me, when I walk in the door, you're going to know I'm radical. Sorry. But how do I do this without, quote unquote, losing my job? And we talk a lot about this, even in my cohort. I've got to keep my job for my, and so how do I do this? Okay. Well, the first thing you have to do is there's a process. The first thing is identifying, actually seeing what's happening. And then the next thing is to describe. Describing means I am actually naming what's happening. Now, you don't have to name it out loud like me. You can just name it in your head. And then you can start intentionally dismantling that particular system. And so I love how Cordelia mentioned policies. I've noticed that some strategies for different people, especially who work within the school system, they start dismantling through creating policies and reshaping the policies of the district. And then having courageous conversations with individuals. With me, what I'm noticing is I am myself having more conversations about what I see. And what you will notice is once you start seeing and you start kind of naming it, other people will start seeing the same thing, and they'll be, yeah, I don't know why that's like that. And you're like, yeah, there's a system behind that. Let's take a look at what the system is. And I think that's what it is. And that's where your research and your learning kind of comes in, because if you don't know how education is impacted or how learning is impacted by this deficit thinking and deficit knowledge of what some can do and what some can't do, then you're going to be in this cycle of perpetuating the same type of or being complicit within the situations, right? So first, identify. The story of seeing. This is me in the education system. You're going to take a look at this bird, right? And you're like, oh, this is such a normal bird. Thank you. Yes, Tina definitely said it, connecting the dots, right? Right? It's like connecting the dots. There's a lot of dots to connect here. First, you got to see. It's like the fish swimming in the ocean. You may have heard that analogy. And that fish doesn't know it's swimming in the ocean. And so therefore, it's like, what's water? And so, you know, as you're going through your life or through your industry, through this industry, you're going to say, you know, I don't, you don't see anything, and it's okay. You may miss it, but that's why you have to keep your ears open. So then you can take a listen and then say, oh, what are you seeing? Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, well, let me see too. But here it's like, oh no, this bird is so angry. Why is this bird angry? And when you take a look at it, the bird is behind a bar, and think of that bar as a barrier to moving forward. It can be a barrier in life. It could be some type of system that's in place within the organization, within your small office, or within your team even. The more bars, as you step back further, you'll see, oh my gosh, there's a lot of bars here. And I have to really kind of start going through and taking away some of these bars and barriers for this cute little bird, right? And then when you step further back, you might see the full entire system that is enclosing this bird, right? And that's the enclosure we're talking about. We're talking about how do we see that, right? And then once you see it, you have to be able to describe it. And that's where your research comes in. That's where your studying comes in. That's where we start taking it. And in my research page, I have various books that specifically talk about the education system in itself, so that you can start seeing how racism and systems of oppression have impacted the education portion of our industry. So you can see that, but you have to name it. You have to use a system of critical reflection to clarify it. Just, you know, with me, I usually go back to my resources and check and make sure that I was correct in what I was seeing. And then you have to discuss with colleagues and leadership. So, for example, what I saw, just personal reflection right here, what I saw was for the past, I would say 3 months, I've been kind of, but first of all, I love white women. But I've been fighting this cabal of white women with a huge organization. And the way that I saw was we were doing research, and this research needed experts to talk on a global level, you know, professional development, right? And what are best practices in professional development? And, you know, there were a list of names of experts, and I literally was like, oh, well, this is very interesting, because I went to everyone's LinkedIn page just so I can see what their expertise were, or maybe I could add somebody too. And I noticed that that it was all white women. I love y'all again. But not only was it only just white women, it was like they looked the same. I was like, you gotta look the same too. Like they were all the same age. They were a little bit of pudgy. I was like, dude, what the Jim Crow is this? and there was like one Black lady, and there were like 3 black men, or 3 men, no black men, just 3 men. And so I was thinking, okay, well, maybe she just didn't see it, and maybe, maybe I should just ask, are we sure that the experts that we are choosing are representative of the students, the student population that we are trying to reach here? And all of a sudden, it was white fragility. It was, no, I know everybody. I've worked with every color and da 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 da. Okay, look, that's fine. That is fine. But I'm just asking, what are you calling and who are you calling? Well, I know this person and that person, but I wouldn't call them an expert though. Those are the terms right there. I wouldn't call them an expert though. And I know this person who works over here and that, but I wouldn't call them an expert either. Okay, so can we back up and can we ask ourselves, what is the criteria of being an expert? And these are the types of conversations that we need to start having. And if you notice what I did, I'm not attacking somebody, you're racist, da, 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 da. I'm not saying anything bad. I'm just assuming the best out of her. I'm assuming that she just didn't notice. I think she was just going through her Rolodex, seeing people, da, da, da. And there you go. But now we're starting to get defensive because I'm asking questions. And the thing is, what is my research based off of? My research is based off of one, the Brown versus Board of Education. I know that there was a whole generation of African American teachers and teachers of colors who were fired from the profession of education. Another thing that I understand and know is that they right now today there are different policies that are trying to be made and created so that they can retain and train up more African American teachers and other teachers of color within the school system in order to match populations of students within the school system. So these are the systemic things that I already know. And so my questions to them were based off of how is it the tech industry that talks about how more women are needed and more people of color are needed. How is it that all of these women are experts in their field? This is a system and we have to break it up. And as I started taking a look at it, I started describing the process and describing what's going on in the education system and talking about, how mostly middle-class white women are in as teachers teaching to 70% students of color and how these different proportions have now gotten to this next level of now I'm a global expert. That just didn't happen by chance. And then, I did use my elitism a little bit and say that none of those people that were experts have been published or anything like that. I haven't seen them published at all. So all of that. So this is why I left the education system. Because I started seeing this. And as I stepped back far enough, I didn't feel as if I could make the impact I wanted to make within the system. Some people feel that they can. Me, I think that the impact I can have better impact outside of the system of education. And I think that I would probably get fired before I can even make a difference within the system, right? So now let's take a look at Carol. And we have probably about 10 more minutes and then you can start going to that Padlet as a reflection for yourself, right? Not saying you'll get through every single thing, but I do want you to kind of think of a personal situation that you are having. And I kind of described my personal situation that I was having. And having the presence and experience and learning to see the situation for what it is and see those systems within your organizations, within your teams, within even yourself sometimes, because I had to change myself as well as a person and individual, and really kind of taking learning where is the deficit thinking coming from, or where is this deficit mindset coming from, or also learning to see just the systems and processes. With me, it was as simple as taking a look at my little color chart to say if you're a good or bad kid at the end of the day, right? And then you have to be able to describe it, name it. And that's going to come from learning more, seeing more, and experiencing more. And so that's why I do have a resource page for you. And at the end here, well, hold on. Let me see if I can grab it right now. Let me grab it for you. Here's my equity resource page that has lots of cool information in there for you. And I'll give it again at the end. But then you have to analyze. The next step is to analyze the experience. And when you're analyzing, this means you're going to think from multiple perspectives and form multiple explanations. And this is where you already know that there's going to be some type of counter narrative to what you have. And from my experience just over the summer, which was a more huge experience in my life, which I'm still kind of working with this person and individual every day, and I'm trying to do it in a more loving and caring way, because there's a lot of unlearning that has to happen now with this person in order to help relearn and restructure their thoughts and on this whole entire level. But the thing is, when you're looking at multiple perspectives, you can also talk to people. And this is a great place right here to talk. Know that this is a safe space for you to talk, right? And thank you for setting this safe space up for us, Liz and Tina, for inviting me in. I appreciate that, because this is a safe space. And know that, you know, that when we speak to each other, that we're speaking from love. We're speaking from, you know, trying to humanize our processes, humanize who we are as individuals, and really see each other. And because of this, you're going to look at from different perspectives, and you're also going to look at multiple explanations, right? And these multiple explanations are ways of just thinking differently. Now, sometimes you want to take a look at different explanations in order to form your counter narrative. Okay, so sometimes you can take a look at the multiple perspectives to kind of see where everyone is, but sometimes you have to use those explanations in order to form and create your counter narratives so that you can go back in and take your action. And that action is an intelligent action. Maybe you need to educate some people. Maybe you need to form that counter narrative, and maybe you need to interrogate more. And when I call interrogate, you can follow the 5 why process, because a lot of times when you just ask, well, why is this? And what is this? And can you help me understand this? A lot of times they're going to take a step back themselves, and they're going to say, yeah, I don't know why it's like that. And then they're going to start to see. But in my case, and this is where we talk about, oh my God, I'm about to lose my job. Sometimes there'll be some specific times that will be like that. One of my close friends, he's global VP of, I'm not going to tell the company, blah, 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 blah. But a lot of times he's like, oh my God, I just said that I'm going to lose my job. Right? And it's sometimes you got to say what you got to say, because you know what is right. You know what you need to stand on, and you know your moral purpose. Right. And so I had to pretty much, after a lot of interrogation and a lot of stops and a lot of trying to move forward and a lot of stops, I literally had to stop the show of this research project and say, I'm going to continue and finish the work, but I don't want my name on this project, please. All of a sudden it's like, what do you mean? Well, what's the problem? Can you talk me through this? And when I talked them through this, yes, I had a full PowerPoint. And I went through everything, and how do we decolonize research, and whose voices are we listening to, and whose voices are we amplifying, right? All of a sudden they see it and they're like, oh my God, help me. I can't put my name on this either. And so something that was going to be like some major kind of stuff for both of our organizations, it turned out to be just a small share out with the higher ups. And when we shared out and discussed and talked about the inequities that we saw, right? They were like, nope, we want to see this all throughout. And now that organization is even better and stronger because we had the courage to step out and say, no, let's take a look at our experts and who we're calling experts. And let's take a look at how we change that. And it has totally changed the whole entire outlook of this company. Number one goal right now for this company is equity. But if I didn't say anything, we would still be doing the same thing. So let's go back here. I'm going to use this. You can use this as your own worksheet. I'm going to have you work through this. I'm moving my PowerPoint out of the way. You can work through this, okay? You don't have to work through this right now, okay? And I don't know where my number 3 went, but that's okay. Learning to see was learning to see. I'm just gonna go ahead and put learning to see again. And how about I'm a teacher and I can't spell learning? How about that? But that would have been number 3, okay? And learning to see again is just learning how to identify what you're looking at, what systems and processes are in place here. And then the next section, of course, is learning to describe, meaning you have to name it, okay? Are you seeing colorblind racism at play? Are you seeing anti-Blackness, anti-othering? Are you seeing a lack of BIPOC in higher positions, making decisions in your corporations? How are you fixing that? Do you see how some people are getting held back because they're not seen? Somebody can't see them in this position. Are we using panels and diversified panels in order to hire individuals? Within the school system, it can go down to the classroom. How are we treating our students of color within our classrooms? How are we talking, and what language are we using? And I love how Cordelia talked about the language, because the language comes from narratives that have been passed down from one generation to the next. Okay. And we have to start creating these counter narratives and saying, why do you think that? Not laughing along. Yeah, that's right. Okay. From women, from people of colors of community, however people are marginalized within your organizations, it's time to start building your strategy. And this way of reflection, the Carol Rodgers way of reflecting, it moves you from seeing to describing what you're seeing, naming it. And this is where your research may or may not come in, or you may need to confirm your research or talk to other people. And then you can talk to other people and continue to talk to other people, analyze experiences, and think from multiple perspectives in order to start taking your intelligent action. What is the next step? And sometimes the next step is just questioning. Sometimes the next step is just visualizing what you need. But all of those come into incremental steps. But you have to be intentional about what steps you are going to take within your actions. And sometimes it might mean, boom, I'm out of here, people. Or sometimes, boom, I'm going to have to be very dramatic or drastic because you just don't get it and you do not hear me. And so you just have to just take a look. Another thing is listening to others who are trying to say that something is happening, and they might not even understand how to explain what's happening. They just know that they're bothered, right? And so kind of like getting to kind of like saying, hold on, well, what is this person? Can you walk me through it? How are you feeling? Checking on one another, right? But other than that, I just want to say thank you again for everything that we talk about here. And thank you for allowing me the space to speak. Another thing is that calling in versus calling out. And that calling in is really to say, well, why do you think that way? And just figuring out how are, tell me a little bit about, your experience, your personal experience, and why you feel that way, right? And then also refusing. You can outright refuse. But when you refuse, make sure that there's a replacement. Refuse and replace. And I'm going to take any questions. If you have any questions, no problem. It's time to remove barriers. So that's all I have.
Amazing. Can I just start with like, love you so much. Thank you.
I was like, Cordelia set it up though. I was
I mean, this, like you said, level ups, like we are in it. And thank you so much for those messages. And I loved the exercises of bringing it through. And then this aspect of how are we reflecting upon that and what are we going to do with it? Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's all about just, knowing who you are and how you relate to others. Okay?
Yep.
How can, at the same time you're empowering self, how can we empower others and taking a real look at each other and humanizing each other, humanizing the process, because it's not just coming from anywhere. People aren't just racist. It's something that's been like systematically placed in, you know what I mean? And so we have to, talk and converse and have conversations. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so I think, the systemic aspects of we're socialized into ways that there's assumptions based upon not necessarily knowing that there could be a different way. And how are we opening our eyes up to see, what are those cages? What are we pushing up against? And how can we really understand what's our also personal accountability to ourselves? If we're saying humanity, how do we create those opportunities for humanity to truly shine and address it?
True.
Yeah, I love it.
Tina!
Hi.
Tina!
Wonderful session, Marie, and just coming off of the Cordelia high that I was on, you're continuing it. So thank you. I so appreciate this. And later on today, a little plug that Bridget and I are co-hosting an ideation lab where we will expand on some of these things that we've talked about today, including Marie, your session. I'm not sure if you're able to be there, Marie, but if we do get deeper into the dismantling the system piece, be great to get your thoughts, additional thoughts. We're going to be ideating around and truly thinking about outside of the box ideas for how we can really make lasting change and impact. So we will get a chance to talk more about this. Awesome.
Yes. Yay. Important plug, and so agree. And so if you can come, and please, we recommend to be there, because it's really those aspects of how can we create this change we want to see in the world. I love it. All right.
I do see a quick question here. What tips can you share to help remove emotion so that a rational discussion can take place? And it depends. Are you the emotional one or not? Because I hate to say this, a sign of whiteness and white supremacy culture is trying to take emotions out. This is why we need, hold on, let me see if I can find Okun right now and I'll just send it out. I'm going to add it to the research page, definitely, because he has completely revamped it. But you have to start saying, emotions, and this goes to us as women and women leaders, right? Emotions, part of what makes us and who we are, and part of our awesome sauce is that we are emotional. It is who you are. What is that? I'm free to be me. You see what I'm saying? And if that person is emotional, you have to understand, because I have been emotional as well. And I've been like, I think there was one woman who just kept talking over me. And I'm like, I need you to stop talking over me. I need you to stop talking over me. And I can look like the crazy Black woman. And I understand that but the thing is, it's whatever emotion that person is feeling, they have been pushed to the brink if they're so emotional that they can't make it right away, right? And so we really have to take a look at how long has this been happening? Just like Cordelia said, how long has this been happening? But not in a way to chastise somebody, but in a way to say, oh, that's why they're so emotional about it. That's why they're so angry, like my little angry bird in the cage, right? You move back further and you see the bar, and then you see the cage that's enclosing them, right? And that cage just didn't happen overnight.
Yeah. Oh man.
But
Very
yeah,
well said.
thank you. That's on D&I training programs. I feel that with the D&I training programs, and I know we have to go really soon, I'll be very quick on this. I think it's good, but I think that it needs to focus on how is anti-bias affecting your specific field of study. So Dr. Harper at USC said that, when everything happened last year, he's been doing D&I for such the longest time. And all of these professors kept coming to him like, tell me, I need to, this is just not my expertise, this field. And he had to say, well, I'm not going to teach you because you're not fully an expert. You're no longer able to call yourself an expert unless you know how equity specifically affects your field. So my expertise is in education. I know how equity hits education and learning, right? I know the deficit thinkings and the deficit thoughts and where they come from. Same thing with healthcare. Same thing with law, same thing with with justice and the justice world and policing. You have to know exactly what historical issues are really holding and enclosing people of color within your own field. And I think that's where the D&I training needs to go. It can't just be like, okay, stop being anti-bias, anti-racist. You've got to know exactly how it's affecting your organization and how it's affecting learning.
Yes.
That's all I got.
Thank you. And that was exactly what needed to be said. Okay. Thank you again. So the resources will be shared. We are also creating booths. And so we'll be sharing the resources that have been shared throughout the day. So again, thank you, Marie.
Thank you.
Stunning.
I'll be back later. Okay.
You will. Absolutely. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.